Many fell victim to the marshy terrain and the Drava River. As night fell...
Oh my gosh, that is so awful. Drowning in something like that. Oh my goodness. Eugene of Savoy. I don't look exhausted and chopped this time, because I was actually able to sleep properly and do all that fun stuff. So
the 1680s proved a fruitful period for the Habsburg war effort. The siege of Vienna was beaten back. The Hungarian capital, Buda, was captured, and many strategic fortresses were seized throughout Hungary. This rollback of Ottoman influence had rightly caused a wave of optimism in the Austrian capital. Eugene of Savoy, while only playing a minor role during these campaigns, commanded his regiment with distinction and was noticed by the Margrave Louis of Baden, who wrote of the young Eugene in his letter to Emperor Leopold. This young man will, with time, occupy the place of those whom the world regards as great leaders of armies.
Yo, I'm really looking forward to this hype.
Emperor Leopold promoted Eugene to Major General. But in the east, the winter of 1686 was greeted with great concern. While the Ottomans had been the dominant power for centuries, now Grand Vizier Sari Suleiman...
Why does his eyes look like that? What in the world? Was he cockeyed or whatever the heck you call that condition? Freaking hell. Was his eyes actually like that?
And Pasha understood the empire's perilous situation and tried opening peace negotiations with the Habsburgs. But the Holy Roman Emperor and his commanders wanted to capitalize on the momentary weakness of the Ottoman Empire. They would settle for nothing less than the complete reconquest of Hungary.
Yes, sir!
This episode is brought to you...
It's funny how, I see a lot of Muslims and not really like Turkish people, but like kind of Turkish people in my comments as well. This is a super long sponsor. They always complain about European colonial empires, but there were just as much Islamic colonial and Turkish colonial empires as well. The Ottoman Empire being literally a prime example of that, hilariously enough. So, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I know that European colonialism was obviously, a lot of it was obviously bad, but like, I just don't like the double standard and just flat out hypocrisy. I mean, you could argue that Muslim colonial empires was less worse than European colonial empires, I guess. But I say you could argue that. Okay, like you could argue that. But still, there were still plenty of Islamic colonial empires too. So
not long after the capture of Buda came the first snow of 1686, and both the Habsburg and Ottoman armies retreated to their winter quarters. But preparations for the upcoming campaign next spring had already begun. The Habsburgs used the lull in the fighting to recruit mercenaries and other combatants, as well as to drill the troops. For Leopold, this was no longer a regular war. It now became a crusade.
Another crusade against the Ottomans.
The Ottomans faced a severe...
How many crusades are we going to get against the Ottoman Empire, man?
A financial crisis. To combat the lack of funds for the war effort, new taxes were imposed, and the ruling family opened the coffers in Istanbul. This was enough to fund the troops on the front line, but in terms of recruitment, the Grand Vizier received only levied troops, many of whom were inexperienced and lacked military training. The losses during 1686 had been so severe that for the first time in history, the Ottoman Empire attempted to open peace negotiations with their enemies.
Wow.
But to no avail. Come spring of 1687, the Habsburg advance had begun. The Duke of Lorraine marched towards Osijek in Croatia with between 30 and 40,000 troops. The Elector of Bavaria and Emperor Leopold's son-in-law, Max Emanuel, marshaled an army of some 20,000 along the river Tisa.
That's not really a lot.
The armies joined along the way,
lot bigger.
and in early August they laid siege to Osijek. Suleiman Pasha had remained in Belgrade during the winter. When he learned of the imperial army's siege, he began a march along the Danube with his 60,000-strong Ottoman army. When he reached Osijek, he swiftly repulsed the Imperials and pursued them to the north. A few days later, the Imperial army reached Nagahashani, a town to the southwest of Mohács. It was here that the army of Suleiman the Magnificent broke the Hungarian kingdom. The death of its king, the virtual decapitation of the nobility, and the subsequent subjugation of its territory made the Battle of Mohács in 1526 a powerful symbol in the collective memory of both the Hungarians and the Ottomans.
Ooh.
Now, 161 years later, this symbolism was not lost on the two warring sides.
This is gonna be good. This is gonna be good.
The Duke and Elector under...
This is the build up. The build. This series is honestly really nice though. Really and truly. Like from the very get-go, this may honestly be one of my favorite historical conflicts, really and truly.
Understood the decisive battle was imminent. The rugged terrain around Nagahashani hindered the Duke's army. He ordered his right and center flanks to move to Siklos over a narrow, long road. A dense forest separated Siklos and Nagahashani, and the Imperial army had a tough time traversing the road. The Bavarians remained stationary around Nagahashani to protect this maneuver. Likely unbeknownst to them, the Duke was moving away from the Ottoman camp, because to the south, Sari Suleiman Pasha knew his enemy was closing in. His troops constructed defenses as scouts closely watched the Imperial movements. When reports told him that the Imperial army broke up to reposition itself, he decided to act fast. Maximilian's Bavarian wing was an excellent target. Historians estimate the distance between the Bavarians and the Duke's army was nearly 5 kilometers.
How much is that, like 3 miles? 3 miles? Ooh. 2 miles. Oh yeah, that's actually kind of... I used to walk a mile to walk home back in like middle school, and that was like, and I used to walk fast, really and truly. That's like 20 minutes. 5 kilometers is like 3 miles, so that would take like roughly 3 miles to an hour worth of walking. But if you speed walk, you could walk a mile in like 10 minutes. I think you could walk a mile in like 10 minutes if you speed walk. So that's like 30 minutes of speed walking, but you have a big army, so...
The Bavarians were stationary and separated, and that the gap between the Imperial troops widened, he ordered the attack. His right flank, mainly consisting of cavalry, swerved to the right. His left flank, mainly infantry, launched a charge against the Bavarian infantry. Meanwhile, the center continued the construction of the defenses. Far in advance, 5,000 Sipahis rode to outflank the stationary Bavarians. Their fast advance alerted the Habsburgs of the impending attack. Maximilian frantically deployed his army in 2 lines and dispatched messengers to the Imperial army traveling towards Siklos. Eugene of Savoy was one of the first Imperial commanders to learn of the Ottoman attack. He immediately turned around with his small cavalry contingent and rushed to the aid of the Bavarian infantry. But the real danger was to their left, the Sipahis. The war diary of a Bavarian major general mentions how Louis William, Margrave of Baden-Baden, rallied a considerable cavalry force with incredible speed and launched a counterattack to stop the Ottomans. They clashed to the Bavarian left. Fierce combat ensued, without either side gaining a clear advantage. A similar battle emerged among the infantry. All the way to the west, news of the Ottoman attack reached the Duke of Lorraine. Despite requests for urgent assistance, Charles did not move. Valuable time was lost, as he reportedly did not believe that Maximilian faced the main Ottoman attack. It took a lot of convincing by lower commanders before the Duke decided to turn the army around. Meanwhile, the rapid deployment of the Bavarians and the grueling, indecisive battle unnerved the Grand Vizier. Suleiman Pasha was well aware that the lack of progress, despite having the element of surprise, was due to the relative inexperience of many raw recruits.
Oh, freaking hell. Oh, imagine if he didn't have that. Oh, damn. Honestly.
Ottoman ranks. Rather than risking the morale of his troops breaking under pressure, he ordered the cavalry and infantry to retreat and his cannons to open fire. An artillery duel erupted, with infantry and cavalry stationary, facing each other. Maximilian urged Charles to launch a major counterattack. The Duke refused and started organizing another trek towards Siklos.
Bro, what is this man doing? What is he doing?
Maximilian and Louis reported to Charles that they would mount a counterattack, even without his support. Left with no choice, the Duke of Lorraine relented and started arraying his men on the imperial right. But, in the meantime, the Grand Vizier used the time to reform his battle lines and steel his men for another attack. The Ottomans repeated the same pattern, a concentrated attack against the Bavarian flank. The Sipahis were tasked with sweeping around them, while the Janissary infantry advanced head-on, supported by another contingent of Sipahis on their own left flank. Because the Duke was still stuck behind the dense woods, his flank could barely come to the Bavarian aid. Still, some of his troops slowly trickled towards the Bavarian lines as reinforcements. The Bavarian infantry countered the Janissary charge. Eugene led his cavalry into battle, taking a position among the vanguard. In the ensuing clash, the Janissaries were slowly pushed towards the constructed Ottoman barricades.
The Janissaries are being pushed back. The Janissaries are being pushed back. You know something that I just realized? This is 1687. 1687. At this point, my country was still a relatively young colony. I really sometimes forget how old it truly is. Really and truly. Freaking hell, 1687. My country was colonized by the English in 1625. 1625. A lot of people don't even know that. A lot of people just completely gloss over the Caribbean. But even I sometimes forget just how old it is myself. So I'm like seeing all this stuff. I'm just thinking to myself, wow. Wow, like this is going on? Whilst that is like happening in the Caribbean, like this is going on here, like all these intense battles and whatnot. Like that is just mad to me. Freaking hell, man.
Eugene's cavalry pursued them until they were in shooting distance. Some sources mention the cavalry pausing briefly until the entire Bavarian infantry caught up. As soon as the cavalry and infantry combined, Maximilian ordered the general attack. Meanwhile, The dense woods shielding the Ottoman left flank continued holding back the Duke and a part of his army. When it became clear that traversing the woods was impossible, Charles tried to circumvent them. Unfortunately, this maneuver took hours, and his part of the army would not reach the battlefield in time. Elsewhere, savage fighting took place on the barricades. As the infantry battle went on, Louis's cavalry pushed back the Sipahis. Then the Margrave of Baden-Baden swerved to the Ottoman right, charging into their flank. Simultaneously on the other end, Eugene, leading his men from the front, broke through the enemy line with his cavalry contingent. Suddenly, the Janissary infantry was at risk of getting trapped in a pincer movement.
Skeleton.
During this time, the Bavarian infantry continued the push. As the battle raged, cracks emerged in the Ottoman infantry formations. Some held firm, fighting to the death, but most, unable to hold the enemy back, broke and fled. The marshy terrain and ample rivers prevented the Grand Vizier from conducting an orderly retreat. Many fell victim to the marshy terrain and the Drava River. As night fell...
Oh my gosh, that is so awful. Drowning in something like that. Oh my goodness.
It appeared the Imperial army had won, against all odds. Contemporary sources mention the casualty numbers, but they should be viewed with a dose of skepticism. Namely, they mention that the Imperial army suffered under 3,000 dead or wounded. In contrast, the heavy Ottoman casualties were owed to the Drava River, where many drowned or were killed during the pursuit. Up to 8,000 were killed or wounded.
Yo, I always ask myself this question: would I rather want to drown, or would I rather want to be burnt alive? I heard drowning is peaceful, and I heard that when you're burnt alive, you usually die in like 3 minutes, or you get knocked unconscious in like 3 minutes. So, like, you're not really feeling most of the pain. Drowning, I heard, is like super peaceful. It feels like you're falling asleep. But still though, like, imagine oh my gosh, dude. Ugh, that's just... I don't want to think about that.
And
Oh my
2,000 were
goodness.
captured. The Imperial forces seized 78 artillery pieces, 56 flags, and 5,000 muskets.
Woo! 7, that's a lot. That's a lot.
The defeat at the Battle of Mohács sent shockwaves throughout the Ottoman Empire. Worse, it highlighted the instability of the state. After a botched counterattack, the Grand Vizier's army mutinied in Petrovaradin. He fled to Istanbul, and the angry troops followed. Soon after, a widespread mutiny broke out throughout the empire.
Wow.
Culminating in the Grand Vizier's execution and the deposition of Sultan Mehmed IV.
What?
The mutiny lasted until April 1688.
This is the same mighty Ottoman Empire that took Constantinople like 100 and almost 100 and like what, 33 years ago, right? No, 150, 130, 34 years ago. Yeah, 134 years ago, right? Because Constantinople fell in 1453. Yeah, damn. I think my math is right, but it's crazy. Only 100, guys. Really and truly, 100 years is not a long time. Okay, well, it kind of is, but like, think about it. Like, 100 years ago, from 2024, almost 2025, was post World War One. I mean, yeah, times were different. Yeah. Still though, that's kind of insane to think how the Ottomans declined that bad.
Consequently, the Habsburg leadership capitalized on the turmoil within the Ottoman state. The imperial troops advanced in a lightning campaign, conquering vital cities and strongholds, including Osijek, Petrovaradin, and Eger.
Ooh, like
the
that.
Diet elected the Habsburgs as hereditary kings.
Bro, why do they look so chopped, bro? Why? Is this because of inbreeding? Why do they always look so weird?
As for Eugene, in recognition of his exceptional leadership in the battle, the Duke of Lorraine gave him the honor of personally informing Emperor Leopold of the victory at Mohács. In turn, the Emperor promoted Eugene to Lieutenant General. Word of his daring exploits traveled far, and King Charles of Spain admitted Eugene to the Order of the Golden Fleece.
Bro, he looks so chopped. Oh my gosh, look at him. Oh!
His star was on the rise, but he would soon face his greatest challenge yet. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching.
Yeah, I like this series. This series is good, man. Yo, we're slowly starting to see Eugene of Savoy. I think this man is gonna be my favorite commander. I think he's gonna be my favorite commander. Like one of the there's plenty of good commanders, but I think he's gonna be my favorite. Really and truly. Oh my goodness, look man, you made it all the way to the end of the video. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, make sure you subscribe, man. Go check out my other reactions on my channel. I have plenty of other reactions on my channel. If you have any suggestions to me, this video was actually a suggestion to me. This entire series was actually, I gotta go and focus on my other series as well, which I haven't forgotten about them. Trust me, I have not forgotten about them. Anyways, man, make sure you like and you subscribe for more. Keep my videos on that algorithm so that more people can come that enjoys this type of stuff, and we have more people to discuss this type of stuff for. And thank you for watching, and goodbye.